Welcome to TV Africa News. Thank you so much for joining us and always being part of us. This is Africa Today. My name is Nahabe Kajura. But first are the headlines. Court of Appeal throws out case challenging MP Abdul Katuntu's election. Mafia trying to return Vinci Coffee deal by changing resolution, says MP Chivumbi. Government gives 2,165 business toolkits to 93 youth women groups under Green Jobs program. In a sports news today, Fufa in secret talks with Onyango to come back from retirement. Once again, thank you so much for joining us. We start with one of our top stories. The Court of Appeal in Kampala has thrown out a case challenging the election of Abdul Katuntu as the Bugweri County MP. Now, the judges ruled that there is no proper evidence to prove electoral malpractices done by Katuntu, as had been alleged by Galisonga in his petition. We have the report. Having polled 17,813 votes against Julius Galisonga's 9,074 votes, Katuntu was declared the winner of the January 14 election for Bugweri County MP seat. However, dissatisfied with the outcome, Galisonga challenged the results in the High Court, but the case was dismissed for lack of evidence. Consequently, Galisonga continued to the Court of Appeal to challenge the lower court's decision. On Thursday, 3 justices of the Court of Appeal, including Cheborian Barishaki, Helen Obura, and Christopher Madrama, ruled that Katuntu in the validly elected MP for Bugweri County. According to the judges, whereas in his petition he indicated that Katuntu personally supervised the beating of Galisonga, this was not further proved by evidence of a third party. According to the justices of the Court of Appeal, the law is that electoral offences and irregularities must be proved on a balance of probabilities to the satisfaction of court, but noted this was not the case with Galisonga's petition against Katuntu. The 3 justices, however, directed that each party bears their own cost. Away from that, the Shadow Minister of Finance, Mwanga Chivumbi, has raised alarm over alleged plans to engineer changes in the recommendations by Parliament's Committee on Trade against the controversial Vinci Coffee deal. We have the report.
Owing to recommendations by Trade Committee chaired by MP Mwine Mpaka, the August House a few weeks ago dismissed the controversial coffee agreement signed between the government and Uganda Vinci Coffee Company Limited earlier this year. The House consequently voted to have the controversial coffee deal terminated for being in bad taste. The Attorney General Chiriowa Chimonka, who has criticized greenlighting the deal, said government would consider the recommendations by Parliament. However, on Thursday, Chivumbi told journalists that they have uncovered a plot to have the resolutions and recommendations by the House changed by people he didn't name. He explained that an earlier recommendation by the Committee on Trade and subsequent resolution by Parliament to have government acquire shares worth 108 billion shillings in Yatiak Sugar was changed to show that the money was meant for the acquiring equipment by the sugar factory. Mwanga told journalists that such a scheme of changing Parliament resolutions has been ongoing, noting that it is high time those behind it are busted. To this, he said he has written to the Clerk to Parliament to furnish him with the resolution of Parliament in regards to the 18th May debate that saw the controversial coffee deal terminated. As part of government efforts to fight poverty and boost labor productivity, the Ministry of Gender, Labor and Social Development has, through the Green Jobs program, given out 2,165 business toolkits and equipment to 93 women and youth groups. Take a look at the story.
The 93 groups are comprised of 3,364 members, including 1,258 males and 2,106 females, drawn from across the country. The beneficiary groups were drawn from 22 districts, including Kampala, Oyam, Bushenyi, Kayunga, Rubanda, Lwengo, Rakai, Tororo, Bushia, Kasese, Bulisa, Gomba, Kisoro, Kyegegwa, Ruchiga, Buyende, Gomba, Amolata, Bulambuli, Buyende, Sembabule and Singiro. Speaking during the handover ceremony, the State Minister for Labour, Employment and Industrial Relations, Charles Okello Engola, noted that government is keen on implementing the Green Jobs program in order to address the low productivity and high unemployment, especially among the youth. He also indicated that, beginning with the 2022-2023 financial year, government will expand the program to reach more Juakalis, targeting all the constituencies in the country. According to Ignatius Mudini, the Elgon County MP and Vice Chairman of the Parliament's Budget Committee, the Green Jobs program should ensure that beneficiaries are equitably selected from all the regions of Uganda. According to officials, the Juakali groups are selected based on the number of criteria, including all beneficiaries being Ugandan citizens. 70% of the beneficiaries should be youth. Beneficiaries should be organized in groups with a minimum of 5 members. The group should have a known business location. The group should be gender sensitive.
Africa Today takes a quick break. We shall come back with our international news. Welcome back for the break. You're still watching TV Africa, the right to know. In international news, calm gradually returns to Chibumba, a town 20 kilometers north of the city of Goma in the east of the Democratic Republic of Congo. After a week of intense fighting between the Congolese army and M23 rebels, the latter are said to be supported by the Rwandan army, according to Congolese authorities. We have the report.
According to the UN, in 8 days of fighting, more than 72,000 people fled their homes in the territory of Nyiragongo and the neighboring territory of Rushuru. The refugees are now staring at an acute hunger due to overcrowding and lack of donor funds. According to one of the locals who fled and spent 4 days in a camp for displaced people near Goma, Rwandan soldiers came with trucks and looted several houses, including his. Another internally displaced person said that he fled the war in Chibumba with his family, and when he arrived in the camp, it was famine that is close to killing them. He added another reason why they returned to IDP camps is because their children had started to get diarrhea and have not received any food aid. Many displaced people are still crowded into schoolyards in the area. They are afraid to go home, but some of them finally do. The Congolese army was deployed after pushing back the rebels. On the RN2 that links Goma to the great north of the province, soldiers are present in large numbers, patrolling on foot and in vehicles.
Moving on in international news, one person was killed in Guinea's capital during protests against fuel price hikes in the first demonstrations since the junta seized control in September, according to opposition leaders and witnesses. During the day, the riot police used tear gas to disperse and calm the crowds before the demonstrations resumed at night when the police began firing warning shots. The young man was shot dead Wednesday at nightfall in Hamdalaye, a suburb of Conakry considered to be a stronghold of opposition parties and critics of the junta. The National Front for Defense of the Constitution, a coalition of civil society groups that oppose the junta, accused the defense and security forces of using live ammunition. The junta has not yet made any statement about the death. Guinea's former president Alpha Condé was overthrown in a coup d'etat September by a military junta that now leads the West African country. The head of the military junta, Kano Mamadi Doumbouya, said that a transition to elections and a return to civilian democratic rule could take more than 3 years. Last month, the main opposition parties rejected the 36-month transition to democratic elections that was approved by the interim parliament. Following criticism of the 36-month timeline, the junta last month banned all public demonstrations, drawing a rebuke from the United Nations. Moving on, Tunisia's president sacked 57 judges on Wednesday, accusing them of corruption, protecting terrorists, and sexual harassment as he strengthened his grip of the judiciary.
In a televised address on Wednesday, Said said he had given opportunity after opportunity and warning after warning to the judiciary to purify itself. Last July, critics accused Said of making a grab for one-man rule after he sacked the government and took hold of executive powers. He was accused of staging a coup after ditching the 2014 constitution to rule instead of by decree. On Wednesday night, the judge's dismissal was formalized by decree in the official gazette. Said conferred himself sweeping powers last year, measures the president claimed were needed to save the country from imminent peril and fight widespread corruption. Under pressure from Tunisia's allies, who are concerned about democratic backsliding in the country, Said has laid out a roadmap that forces organizing a July 25 referendum on political reforms to amend the constitution that would be followed by a parliamentary election on December 17.
Well, thank you so much, our reporter. Moving on, Chad declared a food emergency in the country on Thursday by calling on all national and international partners to help the population. Now, Chad's appeal comes as a meeting between the AU chairperson, the chairman of the AU Commission, and the Russian president is scheduled on Friday. According to the decree signed by the chief of the military transition, Mahamat Idris Deby, there will be a constant deterioration of the food and nutritional situation and a growing risk of food scarcity if no assistance was given to the Sahelian nation. The United Nations estimated last year that 5.5 million Chadians, or more than a third of the population, were in need of urgent humanitarian aid. The situation has only worsened following the war in Ukraine. According to the Observatory of the Economic Complexity, Russia and Ukraine were the world's second and third cereal exporters in 2020. That same year, Africa imported $4 billion worth of agriculture products from Russia. It is particularly the case of Maghreb countries, which rely on Russia and Ukrainian wheat. With imports accounting for more than 50%, Southern Africa is not spared. An economic blow is expected to be felt in Zambia and Zimbabwe, for example. Russian companies supply the bank all the fertilizers used for the country. With the ban of select Russian banks from the Society for Worldwide Interbank Financial Telecommunications, the impossibility for African nations to obtain to pay their supplies has become complicated. Africa Today takes a quick break. We shall come back with business, health, and sports. Welcome back from the break. You're still watching TV Africa, the right to know. Now, talking matters business, Senegalese President Macky Sall, current chairman of the African Union, traveled to Russia on Thursday for talks with his Russian counterpart, Putin, in Sochi on Friday, according to a statement released in his office.
According to the statement, the visit is part of the efforts of the current chairmanship of the Union to contribute to the lull in the war in Ukraine and the release of stocks of grain and fertilizer, whose blockage particularly affects African countries. The visit takes place at the invitation of Mr. Putin. They and Mr. Sall, who was accompanied by the chairman of the African Union Commission, Chadian Moussa Faki Mahamat. His office also says that in the same spirit, the African Union has accepted the request of President Volodymyr Zelensky to address a message to the organization by video conference, the date and modalities of which will be mutually agreed upon. In a message addressed on Tuesday to the leaders of European countries meeting in Brussels, the Ukrainian president had asked to do everything to release the grain stocks available in Ukraine, but blocked because of the Russian offensive that organizes a blockade in the Black Sea and prohibits access to the port of Odessa. He pointed out that the current crisis followed the COVID-19 crisis, which had already worsened hunger in Africa. Senegal, on the other hand, voted for a second resolution on March 24th, demanding that Russia stop the war immediately. Near half of the African countries abstained or did not vote in both votes.
In Africa Today Health, deaths from COVID-19 pandemic in the African region are expected to decline by almost 94% in 2022 compared to 2021, which was the deadliest year of the pandemic, according to a new analysis by the World Health Organization. Now, this drop comes as the number of cases is expected to fall by just over 25% this year.
The analysis, published this week in the scientific journal The Lancet Global Health, shows that while the region officially declared 113,102 deaths in 2021, around one of the 3 deaths was not taken into account, and the true number of deaths would be of 3,500. The analysis predicts about 23,000 deaths by the end of 2022 if current variants and transmission dynamics do not change. However, a 200% more lethal variant would increase the death toll to over 70,000. According to the findings of the study, only 1 in 71 cases of COVID-19 is recorded in the region, and 166.2 million infections are projected in 2022 compared to an estimated 227.5 million in 2021. The gap between the number of cases and deaths in 2022 is due to the increase in vaccination, the improvement of the response to the pandemic, and the natural immunity due to previous infections, which, without preventing reinfections, protect against severe forms of illness and death. As the pandemic persists, it is crucial to strengthen health services as a whole, including preventive measures, treatment, and vaccination of vulnerable populations. Targeted surveillance will also be estimated to monitor hospitalizations, the burden of comorbidities, and the emergence of new variants.
In a sports news today, former Uganda Cranes goalkeeper Dennis Onyango is secretly being lured to come back from international retirement, according to credible sources. Now, the Mamelodi Sundowns #1 announced his retirement from the national team in April last year following a failed AFCON 2021 qualification campaign. We have the report.
Onyango retired in April 2021 after Uganda's loss to Malawi a few days after FIFA President Moses Magogo attacked the players for playing shitty football and that they didn't deserve to demand for any money. The 2016 CAF African Player of the Year, based in Africa, is however in secret talks with FIFA over possible return to the national team ahead of the 2023 AFCON qualifiers. A source at FIFA that preferred anonymity revealed that Onyango was being convinced to return and guide young lads during the rebuilding process. Rumors had started circulating that the former soccer club Villa custodian would be available for clashes against Algeria and Niger. However, he hasn't joined the team in Algiers, and in any case, if the talks yield fruits, he would then be available for selection against Niger on June 8th at St. Mary's Stadium, Chitende.
Well, thank you so much, our reporter. It is at this particular time that I thank you for always being part of us and always joining us. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel. We shall keep updating you. It is TV Africa, the right to know.